Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 3 and episode number 212 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Wednesday, September 20th, 2023, and it is going to be a beautiful, lovely day here at the Beaver Lodge. I can tell just by looking at the sky. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me as always is my dear friend, Mr. Grizzly. Apologize for starting a little late today. The Beaver Sweetie needed the computer early this morning. Got to make sure that we mold young minds. That's the priority. And then we deliver the news. I am also sorry that I keep on sinking lower and lower and lower in the frame with every show because for some reason the camera keeps on being put in a different position. So no, I have not. My Beaver Sweetie has not shrunk the beaver yet again. I'm full fun sized, as you can see. Just for some reason, somebody's playing some kind of trick on me. So tomorrow I figure I'll do the show like this. And then the next like this.
It's like a Oompa Loompa Diggity Doo.
Oh, man. All right. But before we do anything else, let's do the most important thing we do every day. Say hello to you, Mr. Grizzly, and ask how your mental health is doing today, sir.
Well, good morning, Mr. Beaver. I'm still trying to get over the whole Oompa Loompa thing. Mental health-wise, I'm feeling really good today. I slept. I went to bed at 10. I woke up at 3. Did the thing you do when you wake up at 3, and then went right back to sleep again. I've only had one cup of coffee, and I went to pour another, and I realized my carafe was empty, and I didn't have time to make another pot. So it's like I'm not 100% awake yet. But full confession, I've not been 100% mentally lately. I've been trying to do what I do when I'm suffering and mask it, but yeah, I've not been 100%. Just a little bit overwhelmed with everything right now. I've got like a ton of work on my plate. Concerned about this, doing a good show every day, and the research into some of the stuff that we're reading about, some tech stuff and things I'm worried about for Saturday's podcast. Plus, I have a major thing I have to take care of at work this morning. So it's a lot on my mind, and I hadn't been sleeping very well lately, which affects both my anxiety and my depression. Although the medication does help, it's not a cure all. Yeah, and I've had some dark thoughts lately.
Oh,
I haven't really been talking about it because when you're thinking about it, you don't want to talk about it because you don't want to
right,
think about it more.
right.
So I'm on the other side of it now. So that's yeah, yeah. I'm not 100%, but I'm doing really good. So let's enjoy that while we have it.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to learn that you've been going through a tougher time, my friend, and I am
It happens.
definitely happy and celebrating that you are feeling better.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Ah, good morning to the best damn fam in all of podcasting.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. I see Kit Dan. I see the Daily Beaver. I figured I'd add the ICs because people like the romper room.
Hmm.
I see Kit Mohan and Kit Ellen and Kit Linda M and Kit Jen and Kit Elaine and Kit Bruce. Hey, lovely to see you today, sir. It's been a while. Thank you for joining us. Let's see, who else do we have? Kit Jillian, Kit Grappling. Hey, good morning to you. Good soul. And let's see, who else do we have? Kit Saucy, of course. Hello, Mama. Hope you're doing well. Kit Kendra, bonjour, mon pote Christian. Comment ça va? All right. Let's see. Well, yesterday's news landed and didn't land the same for everyone. And
No,
uh, I think we had unity for all of about 35 seconds
something like that.
uh, until PP started undermining everybody by, well, suggesting, not saying, but suggesting that given that the prime minister didn't tell him any more in private than he had told all of us in public, that well, PP would like to see some evidence that these allegations are actually true, which is
You can't.
what of India is saying at the moment, right? These allegations possibly cannot be true. Um, so
That's his Helsinki
we,
moment, eh?
yeah, but we have one little problem. Um, PP doesn't have a security clearance, so
Yeah,
even if
it's
there
not
were
top secret.
that the prime minister could show him, it's not like he could actually see it. Really weird that he'd be choosing to bring attention to the fact that he can't allegedly secure a higher level security clearance at this particular moment, at this
I think
particular
it's weird.
juncture in time. Just struck me as really, really weird. Yeah, PP should get his security clearance, and if I were the prime minister, I'd probably be making that point.
Hmm.
Speaking of the security clearances, we didn't hear anything about it in the news whatsoever. And I was listening to an old interview with Jagmeet Singh from about around August 28th yesterday. And I was sitting there, I'm going, oh, wait a minute. We reported on Elizabeth May having looked at those documents from
Hmm.
well, what documents were available
Right,
that
right.
CSIS made available, which was probably not the same set of documents that David Johnson thought that CSIS would be making available. And we heard that Mr. Singh had gotten his security clearance and that he'd be checking on it, but we hadn't heard anything.
Hmm.
Well, yesterday I decided to look for it. I didn't find anything in any English media, and I found one article in
Hmm.
Francophone media saying that he had indeed looked at it and basically came to the same conclusions as Miss May.
Why didn't the rest of the media report on that then?
Guess Miss May did it first. And Jagmeet Singh didn't have anything new to add other than, well, me too.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
it didn't get covered.
But
But I was
wouldn't that
wondering, because when we would
wouldn't
hear from him,
yeah.
because he's a partner in the supply and confidence motion, you'd think we would hear from him.
Well, not to mention the fact that I would have thought that they would report on it because it's like he's in complete agreement. What is the word I'm looking for? Agreement. Is that even a word? Um,
Agreement?
agreement with Ms. May's findings, or Mrs. Is it Mrs. now?
Yeah, we talked about it. I keep on saying Miss May if it's the last name, but Mrs. May would probably be fine as well.
Yes, yes. Elizabeth May. He was in agreement with her findings. They didn't report on it. I'm like, because that paints a bad picture for Skippy.
Hmm.
That's just my theory.
Yeah. Well, it does. It really does.
It does paint a bad picture, and like
It's
most of the
terrible picture.
newspapers are conservatively owned by conservative. They just don't want to tell the truth anymore or report on it.
Yeah.
I guess I just it's exasperating.
Man, I tell you.
Yeah.
No, it is. And now, like, and clearly, like I mentioned on the previous show, I'm not the most well-versed person on India-Sikh relations. Right? Um, but, well, the Indians weren't happy. Canada's High Commissioner to New Delhi was summoned to India's External Affairs Ministry and told that one of his country's senior diplomats was being kicked out. He
Mhm.
was given 5 days to pack up and leave India. So some tit for tat was involved there, which is very similar.
We didn't call for government-sanctioned extrajudicial murdering of a Indian citizen in India. So their tit for tat is not very good. It's not. It's an apple to an orange. I get it. We kick somebody out. They're going to kick somebody out. But it's like, well, we kicked somebody out because of what you did. And we called you out on it. So you're going to kick us out because we told the truth? That's what we're doing now? Is that how it's going now?
Yeah. Yeah. So outside Canada's High Commission in New Delhi, extra security officers were summoned to make sure there was no threat of violence. Somebody from the Indian government is on the record as saying, "We do not accuse another country of assassination until you have moved from credible allegations to critical evidence. And that is why I say it has been an extremely immature and extremely irresponsible statement." That's actually not from, the Indian government, but from a counterterrorism expert, Ajay Sani from India. We're going to have to expect these types of statements from India, similar to China, calling what the prime minister has done extremely immature and irresponsible and trying to denigrate everything, just like every time we give China a minimum of just little side eye. It's like, stop interfering in our internal affairs. So there's a lot of China going on. We mentioned this yesterday that India is borrowing from China's playbook here. They're also borrowing a lot from Turkey's playbook. I was thinking more and more of this, but remember when Erdogan had tried in the United States to get them to kidnap some guy named Fatuma Gulen in the middle of the night and load him upon an airplane and bring him to Turkey so he could get the Mohammed bone saw treatment? And that was interrupted. This seems very similar, except I think now they're just sort of getting tired. Well, fine, you won't let us bring them to our country so that we can hack them up into pieces. We'll just do it on your territory then.
Damn.
Because they keep on, I mean, this is like 3 incidents in the past few years now. And different countries are involved. But it's the same play.
It's disturbing.
Yeah. So you got PP asking to see evidence. Again, I don't know why he would be asking to see evidence if he won't get a security clearance, and I certainly don't know why he would be asking. I hope he's not asking to make that type of evidence public, because now would definitely not be the time. But if you do want to be helpful and do something to help this country, Skippy, get off your damn overprivileged ass and get that security clearance. Then
He won't
complain. Now, one of the reasons this issue is so big, and I did not know this until yesterday, but as is the case for Ukrainians, Canada has the largest Sikh diaspora in the world. Close to 800,000 Sikhs live in Canada.
I thought it was Sikh.
It's sick. It is sick. We
It
talked
is.
about it the other day, and I've been
Yeah.
paying attention, listening to quotes. And Mr. Singh yesterday in the House of Commons said sick, and I was listening
Okay.
this morning to a representative from a national group. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, and
Okay.
he also was saying sick.
So we've been saying it wrong all these years.
Yeah, I think it
Nobody
was one of
corrected
those
us.
things. It's like I'd heard also. I mentioned on a press show that normally the word isn't Shiites, it's shits, but nobody wants to say shits, so we said Shiites.
Mm,
So I guess nobody wanted to say six because these people are
right.
sick, right? So
Yeah.
we made the I long, but the six pronounce it sick. So
This I didn't know.
yeah, well,
And I'm wondering if anybody was horribly offended by that. Like a genuine question, was anybody horribly offended by that? Because if you're sick and you live in Canada and you speak both languages, you would understand that pronunciation kind of carries a somewhat negative
yeah.
connotation.
Well, it's almost like when we were naming those Omicron variants, right? And we got to the Greek letter G, and then we
Hmm.
skipped over it because the chairman of China's latest name also happens to be G, and nobody wanted to brand it as the
Yeah.
G virus.
Yeah, for good reason, because it emanated from China.
Yeah.
So
So, we may have decided to just let's just skip over by making that I long.
yeah,
But yes, it seems that it is indeed six. Um,
the things you learn on this podcast, I'm telling
hey,
you, man.
we
Just-
pay attention. When somebody asks the question, I get the bug in my ear, and then I start, listening for stuff. So, right. Um, Now, the actual statement from India's Ministry of External Affairs in responding to what happened says, quote, allegations of government of India's involvement in any act of violence in Canada are absurd and motivated. They could have borrowed
mm,
that from China. That first line. Similar allegations were made by the Canadian Prime Minister to our Prime Minister and were completely rejected. Just like China, we never do anything wrong. We never interfere in anybody's personal affairs or national affairs or internal affairs, but everybody seems to interfere in ours. Why do people persecute? Why are we so persecuted? Is basically what the government is of India saying, and persecuted by Canada, apparently. Similar allegations were made. So I mentioned that one. Sorry. Sorry. Let's try that again. Such unsubstantiated allegations seek to shift the focus from Khalistani terrorists and extremists who have been provided shelter in Canada and continue to threaten India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The inaction of the Canadian government on this matter has been a long-standing and continuing concern. Well,
well,
now, the thing is that according to let's see, what was the name of the organization? I noted it. The organization Six, no, not Six. It's the national organization representing Canadian Six. I'm sorry, I've lost. There we go. The World Sikh Organization of Canada. Its spokesperson has said this. How India defines terrorism is very different to what we see as terrorism and how we understand that term. India defines terrorism as anything that threatens its territorial integrity and unity. So, someone talking about sovereignty, talking about Khalistan, is heralded as a terrorist. And there were accusations made against Mr. Niger in 2016 that he was running a terrorist training camp in British Columbia. There was a video posted in the media of six at a firing range. And the mayor actually had to come forward and say that the allegations were completely ludicrous. This was in the area of Hope, British Columbia at the time. And saying that if there was anything criminal that Mr. Niger was involved in, that information should have been passed on to the Canadian authorities, where if there was something, well, he would have been investigated, would have been tried and found guilty and be convicted. But all he was guilty of, according to the World Sikh Organization of Canada, was being the president of the largest Gurdwara in Canada and speaking
mm,
from that stage about Khalistan. And given that he was very open for support for Khalistan and encouraging people to vote in a Khalistan referendum, Well, that's terrorism. The thing
Voting.
is that it's not the first time that a referendum has taken place in Canada. One was held in Brampton a while ago when over 100,000 people showed up to vote in that one in support of Khalistan. The most recent one had 135,000 people, and that was in Surrey, British Columbia, which was happening while the Prime Minister was in India. Right? So he says India is going to persecute anyone that talks about it. So it's not a surprise at all to the World Sick Organization that this has happened, because there actually was a 1,000,000 rupee bounty on Mr. Niger's head. I did not know any of this.
Well, let me just check here.
What are you checking, my good friend? Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't see you telling me to keep talking. So the and there's another group, the National Council of Canadian Muslims. They're worried about it as well. They consider it an extremely serious matter that needs to be dealt with the utmost urgency, and they're asking for four things. One, the immediate recalling of Canada's ambassador. Two, uh, starting the process to expel India's ambassador to Canada. Three, ceasing all discussions of trade negotiations with India. That has happened. And four, in conjunction with the NWSO, and I'm sorry I did not look up what that acronym means, we're calling on the immediate meaning of the RSS organization in Canada and the expulsion of all its agents from the country, because you can't do a business with a country that's killing your citizens.
Of course not. I just wanted to do a calculation. I had to pull up the calculation here.
Okay.
1 million rupees. Do you have any idea what that is in Canadian dollars?
No idea.
Take a crazy guess.
I don't even know what the exchange rate. I don't know if like 1 rupee is lower or higher than the dollar.
1 million rupees is 16,000 Canadian dollars.
That's it?
That's it. That's what a life is worth in India. 16,000 bucks. That's not a livable wage in this country.
Wow.
And CERB was only about 12 bucks an hour when you averaged it out. $16,000 an hour. $16,000, yeah. To be precise, 1 million rupees is 16,159 Canadian dollars, or 12,034 US dollars. 9,073 pounds. Yeah. 11,246 euros. And 7 Ethereum. If Ethereum means anything to you. Yeah, it's 10,000 Swiss francs, 18,000 Australian dollars, 20,000 New Zealand dollars, 4.2 million Argentinian dollars, and 180,671,947 Lebanese pounds.
Jeez.
And it's 510 million Iranian reals. Sorry, it's a conversion thing here, but
Yeah.
it's fascinating when you put it into the perspective of what it is in Canadian dollars. It's like, really? That's wow.
Yeah. The CEO of the National Council of Canadian Muslims is also saying that, quote, we know several people personally that are very close to the National Council of Canadian Muslims that have been targeted by RSS-affiliated organizations in Canada and in the GTA. So when this happened, there were many people in the Muslim community who were quite concerned. What does this mean for my security, that a prominent member, a leader of the Sikh community, would be assassinated in broad daylight by a foreign government? It's absolutely, absolutely despicable, and nobody in this country should worry about their safety when walking out of a place of worship.
Indeed.
And again, I completely agree with that. Nobody should be worrying about their safety at any moment.
Not in this country. We're not supposed to worry about that. I have an interesting article here from Bloomberg. Canada's murder allegations were raised to India weeks ago.
Yes.
Issue was flagged through security and diplomatic channels. Allies take immediate response at sensitive economic time. It says Trudeau's team had been working closely with the US and UK over the summer on the investigation, eventually expanding to other European and NATO allies, according to a person with knowledge of the matter. Canadian officials raised the issue through security and diplomatic channels with India's government throughout August and September, said the person who asked not to be named, speaking about private matters.
Yep. So they've been working for this for a while. This did not come as a surprise to the government of
No.
India when this was brought up. And, you know, the news became big in Canada when the Prime Minister read that statement in the House of Commons. But last week on our show, we had mentioned Al Jazeera was already reporting that this might be some of the reasons, and we brought that to you. Now, nobody, and again, from the National Council of Canadian Muslims and the World Sikh Organization of Canada are surprised because apparently they're, like you said, from our side, there was stuff happening before that everybody, if you were paying attention in that field and you had your ear to the ground, you knew about. Well, so was there on the government of India's side. The spokesperson for the World Sikh Organization of Canada says, this is actually based on decades of Indian interference in Canada in the Sikh community. So for most Canadians, this was a shock to hear that India might be engaging in these sort of activities. But for Sikhs of Canada, this is not a surprise. So when Mr. Niger was assassinated, we knew exactly who was behind it. There were indications well before that. As early as June 2022, there were threats against his life. In fact, in Indian media, a narrative was being formed that he might be targeted, and they claim, tongue-in-cheek, well, it might be a gang war. Well, because Surrey, right? He might, lose his life. And then his death was actually preceded by 2 other targeted assassinations of Sikhs who supported Khalistan. And there were actually social media accounts and others in India who said, quote, bad news for Khalistanis dropping like flies, and bad news will likely be coming next from Canada. And all of us knew what that meant. Harjit Singh Nazar was wanted in India. There was the rupee, and there was the $1 million rupee bounty on his head. And, quote, there was no doubt in his mind and the community's mind that he was an active target.
So here's a really interesting comment I just came across the feed. It's from yesterday, but it was a tweet by Jen Gerson.
She's hit or miss, most often miss.
Yes. I'll read her tweet in a second, but it was the response that came up 18 seconds ago. Jen Gerson, I really do think a lot of progressives are overestimating how much conservatives actually care about Modi. And Nikki with an E, it's at @winter_Canada. Apparently, they were justifying the murder yesterday by saying he wasn't a Canadian. Seriously.
Yes.
And it was a minister of...
Mark Miller.
Thank you. Who said, I can assure you, he has been a Canadian since 2015.
Yes. And a couple of months before Prime Minister Trudeau became Prime Minister.
That's right. So
under Conservative government, he became a Canadian citizen.
Yes. So take your racism and shove it up your arse. They will look for any excuse. Any excuse.
Yeah.
Right?
He's not a citizen. He's not a citizen. And now it's going to be like, well, he wasn't born here, so, he wasn't a real citizen.
That's coming next,
That's
right?
the next step, right?
Of course it is.
You know it. They have to make these distinctions that don't exist or don't have any material distinctions without a difference. As the Prime Minister said, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. Whether you were born here, whether you were just sworn in 5 minutes ago, or whether
you're Canadian,
or whether you're 500 years old and still alive today, you're a Canadian. So, Jude is Canadian.
I've talked about this in the past where I said I often meet people, I'll be sitting in the pub over here, a conversation, and then I'll just chime in and go, what do you mean you haven't got your citizenship left yet? You've lived in Canada for how long? 7 years. You've lived in Ottawa for 7 years, and they haven't given you your citizenship yet?
Ooh, Mateo. We've got some Honey Nut Mateos.
Honey Nut Cheerios. And she brings me a coffee. What a lovely lady. Thank you, darling. So I said, if you've lived in Ottawa for one full year, one winter and one summer, and still want to be here, automatic citizenship. And one of my coworkers, because he noticed my earring, and he says, "Well, I'm originally from Nigeria." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "How long you been here?" He's 22 years. I go, "Oh yeah." I said, my rule is, and I explained it to him. I explained it to him. I go, 1 year in Ottawa, season round, you suffer through our summer, you suffer through our winter, and still want to be here, automatic citizenship. He goes, "Yeah, when I immigrated here, I came to go to school in Winnipeg."
Oh, you poor child.
I went, "What?" He goes,
From Nigeria?
"Yeah, from Nigeria."
Nigeria to Portage in Maine? Oh, you
Yeah.
poor child.
Oh, and by the way, his name is Paul. Awesome dude. Awesome
Great
dude.
name.
And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, I came to Canada from Nigeria straight to Winnipeg in January." I'm like, "Oh dear Lord."
And you didn't.
I go, "Dude,
you didn't
you
get a
land and
plane
you don't get
turn
on the
tail?
plane and leave right away. You
Yes.
just get citizenship. Here's your passport." Because, man.
Oh my God. Kit Moan says that Mateo has noticed and says, "Good morning. Good morning to you, Mateo. I hope you're
Hey,
feeling
buddy.
less grumpy today and much happier." There you go.
It's
We
a
got
happy day, Mateo. You start our show every morning, but little buddy, I don't know if he knows that or not, but he starts our show every morning.
Yes, he brings us so much joy every time I hear it. Good morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Eager Beaver Show. I just go, yay!
I wonder how he's going to feel in 20 years from now when we're still doing this.
He'll have replaced me probably. He's coming for my job. All right, we have some comments from the kids here. Terry Molesky was on Indian News yesterday, sympathizing with India. I don't know if it's sympathizing, but yes, it would definitely sound like that. That's for sure. Terry Molesky wrote a book called Blood for Blood, 50 Years of the Global Khalistan Project. And so he's written extensively about it, and his perspective is... well, he was asked, why would the Indian government be so worried about the political activities of a group of mostly Canadians? And he said, this is his quote, "So they're worried about it because just the Canadian, sorry, that's really weird. I think he stumbled on his words there.
That happens.
I took
I
the
do it
quote
all the
down.
time.
So they're worried about it because, well, I'm just going to read what I have. So they're worried about it because they're worried about it. Just the Canadian government is about domestic politics. And that is that for Indians, they remember the past and they watch the present in the... Yeah, you know what? This quote does not make sense. The AI did not transcribe it. Great.
That's what I'm thinking.
This does not make sense whatsoever.
Just abandon it.
Yeah, so let's
Abandon
go to
hope,
the part
all
where it
ye
starts
who
to make
enter.
sense. Yeah. I think is that every family in the Punjab where most of the world seeks to live, where most of the world seeks live, has terrible memories of what they tell us our movement was all about back in the days of the 80s and the early 90s. And I don't mean just big events like the Air India bombing of 85. I'm talking about the everyday killings for more than a decade of more than 200,000 people in the Punjab. And those thousands of victims died in what was basically an attempt to ethnically cleanse Punjab, to drive the Hindus out. And if you fast forward to the present and you look at the referendum voting or Sikh state, for example, in Canada, let's say, well, they changed and now they're democratic. Look what's wrong with looking. And I'd agree that there's nothing wrong with voting, but the referendum campaign in Canada is named for its poster boy, who's the worst mass murderer in the history of Canada. The guy who was told to bombard the Air India.
Oh, okay.
So apparently the movement is named after him. That event had killed 331 civilians. And if you add to all of that, what is happening now, for example, there was a parade in Brampton, Ontario this year, and many people didn't see it, but there was a life-size display of a reenactment and celebration of the assassination of the 1984 Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. So you could see why the average Indian remembers the Khalistan movement very differently than Canadians do. and they don't see a quiet, peaceful democratic movement. India would have clearly made this known to Canadian government what options the Canadian authorities have had to deal with these examples. Anyway, it goes on. But, and again, right, I don't know enough. But from what I'm hearing is that it's a messy situation where some of the things that Modi is doing right now to Muslims are
Which he's
things
been
that,
doing for some time, though. I
yes,
mean, they've been burning mosques for years now.
yes, are things, at least the claim here, that Sikhs had been doing to Hindus in Khalistan specifically.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not something
So-
we can wade into the weeds on because it's not our. It's halfway around the world. It's it's on the other side of the world. It's an issue that we're not well versed in.
No.
I don't.
It's just
I
that
have
we're
a
just presenting
periphery
what,
of it. Right?
yeah, we're just presenting what both aspects are saying.
We should
all
find
the
somebody
things.
who could come in and wax poetically about it, who's well versed. If we can find somebody who would be interested to come on the show and discuss it.
Even then, I wouldn't even know how to
Yeah, true.
to vet.
hmm Yeah, it's just not an area that I have enough knowledge in.
Yeah,
But I think it's something I'll be doing a lot more reading on in the near future because of the fact that it's now touched down on our soil, right? So and you know what? I'm going to hazard a guess that it's been going on longer than this, longer than we know about. It's just only coming to light for public knowledge now. This has probably been going on for 30 years.
Oh yeah.
But we're only finding out about it now. And there's been other members who have just, been gunned down in BC, and they made it look like a gang related or drug related, or I wonder if that was actually the case. You got to call that into question now, right?
You have to ask the question. If you're going to be thorough, you have to ask the question. Even the question is uncomfortable or inconvenient. You have to ask the question. You have to find out.
Well, and it's a legitimate question. I don't know. Did you ever see the CBC miniseries Biba Boys?
No, I didn't.
So there was two series they did within a couple of years of each other. There was Dragon Boys, and then there was Biba Boys, and they both took place in British Columbia, Vancouver, Lower Mainland. Dragon Boys was about I won't say Asian because they're both South Asian, right?
Yeah.
Dragon Boys was about Chinese gangs, and
Okay.
Biba Boys was about Indo-Sikh Pakistani gangs in BC.
Okay.
If you can find it, Biba Boys. Both of them were really well done programs, and apparently, if memory serves, the writers had been somewhat intimately involved for both series in the sense that they grew up with it and around it. So I just watched it as an onlooker, basically, because I don't have any knowledge of what goes on within that grouping of people. I don't know what goes on in gangs in this city, and there's gangs in this city. There's a guns and gangs unit, right? I don't know what goes on. So,
well, same thing me too, and I don't want to.
Well, yeah,
it's like it's not like I'm like hanging around, going, "Hey, what you guys doing over there?"
Yeah. Well, I remember about back in the 90s, I was dating a woman who lived in a questionable neighborhood, and we only went out on 2 or 3 dates. Nothing ever became of it. And I remember once I would usually meet her downtown somewhere, and one day she asked me to come pick her up. So I went to pick her up, and I'm in a white company car, corporate logos on the side of it. I'm in a shirt and tie. And I noticed that the 10 minutes I was waiting for her in the parking lot, she says, I texted her, she says, "I'll be right out in a couple of minutes." I'm like, okay. Called her, I think, not texted her, but the police drove by about 7 times in a 10-minute period. I'm like, what the? Oh, they thought it was a drug deal. Because that particular neighborhood was well known for that at the time. I don't know if it still is, but it was at the time. So it's like, wow.
Was that around Hell Towers?
No, south of Walkley.
Okay. Oh yeah, that okay. The other part, yeah. There's 2 parts of town. Yes.
Well, there's 3. There's also Caldwell.
Yes. Actually, yes, that's true. Oh boy, how are we doing on time, Mr. Grizzly?
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes.
All right. So that was
Tomorrow will be a remote location for me.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I have to. I got to be in the office at 7 tomorrow. So
All right. So that's what we've got on that subject. And like I said, kids, we're just trying to present what it is that we found out from all perspectives, because. Like I said, we had the comment in the chat here. Mileski was apologizing for. I don't. I'm perfectly willing to admit my ignorance. I don't know if that's enough um, to qualify as apologizing or not. Um, I'm seeing some comments here that the Khalistan project is legitimate, like the Kurdistan project is. I don't even know enough to say that, but I do know enough to know that this is a hot mess. And
oh yeah,
for those of us who are new to the subject, it's going to take us a while to figure it out. And I think there's a lesson from this that we should learn, and particularly with Canadian media, who were rushing in the entire weekend, going, "Oh well, Trudeau didn't show up and didn't explain. What a rude guest!" And well, geez, pulling out of trade talks without any explanation. Well, that sounds a little stupid. Why is he trying to destroy the country? Why is he trying to piss off Modi? We need him. Why is he? And then we find that out. Um, when you don't know, like we're admitting we don't know,
Mhm.
um, you don't have to swing at every damn pitch.
Yeah.
Sometimes just holding back and not giving your instant hot take so that you can let things play out for a couple hours or a couple of days so you can to get a sense of what's going on. Saves you from having to scrape egg off your face later.
hmm
There's not many of us in the Canadian press and Canadian media that have delved into this subject deep enough for us to be stating with authority, especially
Goodness
5 seconds
no.
after we learn something. Oh, this is terrible, and the prime minister did it, or the
Goodness
prime
no.
minister's a hero and did the right thing. We don't know,
That's more bluster from PP.
right?
More bluster from PP. He's just
But
trying to score a political point. Because
but
yesterday he was agreeing with the prime minister,
yes,
and he can't do that.
he can't be seen doing that. No. So again, so it has to be like the prime minister's hiding information from him, right? Not being
Information that
forthcoming.
he's not entitled to see because he does not have top secret security clearance, so he can
Yes,
shut his pie hole.
but the narrative, right? Because the prime minister's sneaky and not forthcoming, and some criminal mastermind, and unethically
And the
corrupt
people who've
person
been
who's like
suckered
moving
into
all the
believing
pieces.
him will believe him.
Yeah. So he's just feeding that narrative like this. So he was on Team Canada for all of about 35 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put a link in the chat here to a tweet thread from I don't know how to pronounce it. It's SHISHITO6IX.
Okay. Yes. That's
It's
a good account.
yes, it's a very good account. Um, and this I just got to share the first. It's a long tweet thread about lies from Skippy, and I'm just going to share this screenshot of the first one, tracking Pierre Poilievre's lies. When I was housing minister, Pierre claims to have been housing minister for Stephen Harper's government. Fact check. Harper's government never had a housing portfolio, nor did it have a housing minister.
And if he was housing minister, it would have been when he was Minister of Economic Development or Human Resources and Economic Development, which he
Right.
was for about 10 months, the
That's it.
last 10 months of the Harper term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pierre claims he can fix our housing issue, but his voting record proves he doesn't care about unhoused Canadians. He voted against the Canada Housing Benefit. He repeatedly voted against the right to housing.
Yep.
He voted to block all federal investments to build, introduced a so-called housing plan with absolutely no mention of homelessness or supports for renters, endorsed anti-construction NIMBYism in Calgary. The entire tweet thread is similar to that, where it has like graphics and it's a very long tweet thread, and it's a very good one because it's a fact check on every single freaking lie, and it goes on and on and on. And
Please post the
this
link.
needs to be played on repeat on every media there is to let Canadians know what this guy is. His voting record proves that everything he says is a damned lie.
Yep. Don't listen to what they say. Listen to how they vote. Listen to how they vote. All right. Some little bit of news before we go. The Professional Women's Hockey League had their draft on the 18th. And, there's a lady whose last name is Heise, Heise, for some reason. And I do not. Why is this computer not opening my links?
You have a lot of computer issues. More
Jeez.
than I do. That's saying
Yes.
something.
Yes. Taylor Heise went. She's from Minnesota, and she went to Minnesota, and she was picked first overall. So with the Minnesota Gophers will be the name of the team. Billie Jean King was there for the announcement because she's one of the key people associated with the organization, along with the owner, I think it is, of the Dodgers, I think, who is the main or principal or even sole shareholder for the entire league. Manitoba's a lady from Manitoba whose last name is Larocque, Jocelyn Larocque. She's a defenseman. She was the first drafted player to join one of the Canadian-based teams, going second to Toronto. I am going to be really excited, like for about 5 or 6 years from now, because every time that there's a draft that comes on, all the sports networks are there, and you have like 4 or 5 or 6 people at the table, and they're talking about the draft, like big news, like who's going to go where and when. Like, I can't wait to see those types of shows for the Women's Hockey League.
Tavi, what's the good news about Waterloo? I'm not even sure what it is.
Yes.
I'd be happy to share if it is good news. I'm not familiar with
it. So that draft took place. Kit Kendra reports in the chat here. Hey, Mr. Grizzly, no honking yet from the Convoy reunion Save the Children march. Did they get the million vans to march?
I'm glad I've heard nothing yet. Yes. So, and I don't think a million. There won't even be a million people in Canada, coast to coast, participating in this. Not even close. You know why? Most of us have to go to work today.
Yes,
because it's Wednesday.
Yes.
You know what Wednesday is? Wednesday is a working day.
Yep.
Basic income passed in Waterloo. Cool. Okay, I'll check that out. I'm going to share. You know how Facebook Memories comes up with stuff you did in the past? Yep. I'm going to share something with you. This is from me a couple of years back, 2018 to be precise, when I was in London. It's me fist bumping with a pharaoh. And then there's a bunch of stuff of me pointing at things. That's the British Museum, pointing at the British Museum. That's in Greenwich Village on the Meridian line. And there I am pointing at, what's the name of it? Canary Wharf.
Mm-hmm.
There I am pointing at the Cutty Sark that I'm actually on. There I am pointing at Tower Bridge. There I am pointing at Trafalgar Square. And there's Nelson's Column. And that's more Trafalgar Square. And that's a pigeon in Dublin.
Oh, Pierre joined you for your trip.
St. James Gate. That's my friend Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
And this is at Slane Castle in the distillery. That's Slane whiskey in the background. There's the whole wedding party. My family's in there. There's my sister, my brother-in-law, my other sister. My mom and dad are in the back. Hello, there. Family. That's my mom and my Uncle Paul. That's who I'm named after. That's me. And I don't know who the fellow was in the background. I just liked the picture, so I snapped it. That's a palm tree in downtown Dublin.
Okay.
And so I thought this was fitting. This is the Meridian line, right? Ottawa, Montreal, 73 degrees. Ottawa, 75 degrees. Chicago. What's missing from that? Toronto's not on there. It's not. I just thought it was kind of funny. Buenos Aires, Montevideo, and there I am. Yeah. Anyway, I thought I'd share just a couple of photos from a few years back. And the whole pointing thing, the whole reason I do that, it's a throwback to the 80s, a very famous film from an Australian fellow. Remember Crocodile Dundee?
Mm-hmm.
So he's on the roof of 30 Rock, and they snap his photo, and he reaches out and he points to the Empire State Building, nods. They take a photo, then he points again with his other hand, nods. So that's the whole reason. It's just a gag thing I do when I'm on vacation. I like to share those photos because they're funny.
Thank you for sharing them. All right.
You're welcome.
Do we have a show, Mr. Grizzly?
We do indeed. I'm going to check and see if I got. I've been told I was sent the link. Let me just check and see if I've got the link for the UBI passage in the city of Waterloo, and my computer's not behaving correctly for some reason.
All right. I'll look it up and
I don't
see.
know.
I'll look it up and see if we can get it in for the Easter egg. All right. The dude can point. Kids. All right. Kits and Cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless, and you have the mouths from whom we want the word to be spread. So please tell your peeps and poops about us. Because democracy is something that you do if you are in Manitoba. Please make sure that you do what you need to do so that you can plan your vote. And Miss Cassie yesterday reminded us, I believe, that debates are tomorrow for Manitoba, and that early voting starts on either the 23rd or the 24th of September. So make sure that you get out there and cast your ballots. Also donate to the Red Cross, donate here for our brothers and sisters in Canada, or for our friends in Morocco. If you're donating in Canada, I believe that Air Canada is matching your donation. And if you're donating to Morocco, the Canadian government is tripling your donation up to $3 million total. So please do what you can there. And as always, as we say, write your MPs, your MPPs, your MLAs, your senators, your media, and demand better in our media coverage, in our laws, how we're represented, all that good stuff. Demand better. Let's see. If you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode when we have it, please go to our pod page sponsored by the lovely, wonderful, and amazing The Ray Girl. That's podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And like we said, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, we will come directly to you. Not straight, though, just gaily forward. And since you are subscribing to stuff, why not make like Kit Elaine and subscribe to our True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page? And if you like to smash, well, it's a party, because like is there, share is there, and subscribe is there. So you can smash with all three. Go on, get busy. Yeah. And if you would like to get in there, yeah. And if you love what we do, there we go, Kit Cassie. Good morning. Yes, tomorrow leaders debate. Thank you. There we go. There's the pointing. And there. Oh man. And now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yes, if you'd like to support us and encourage us to do more, as some people have done again yesterday. And I'm sorry, trust me, I think I'm going to have an episode where I'm just going to be like reading people who left tips, but I will note them and will give you the proper acknowledgement. It's on our scan that QR code that appeared by Mr. Grizzly's head, which will bring you to our coffee page. And for those listening, well, that's coffee spelt a little bit of an interesting way, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And that's where you can make your contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can keep our vocal cords moist, so that we can deliver this show for you. Our friends Guinness Beer Draft, specifically. Yes. Hot chocolate, Caesar, gluten-free Farm Boy chocolate chip cookie ice cream sandwiches. I haven't had one for a while, kids. They're all there. They're waiting for us to help us write and produce and market and deliver the show to you. So please make your contribution, and that would be very welcome and very appreciated. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your Eager Beaver saying, kids, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom, please.
Yeah. Please share the Twitter thread that I shared in the comments, if you can, with as many people as possible, so that Canadians know how much of a pathetic, lying. I'm gonna censor what I was about to say, but pathetic, lying person Pierre Poilievre is, or Poilievre, Skippy the Wonder Pigeon. He's a lying little shit gibbon, and he needs to be called out for it because he lies every time he opens his mouth. And he continues to get away with it because Canadian media does nothing to stop him. And I'm sick of it. Look, every politician lies. I get that. But this guy's been lying his ass off for almost 20 years.
2 decades.
And he just gets away with it. And I'm sick of it. And look, we will call out any politician that lies. Every single one of them, every single time. But this guy's litany of lies, this guy's history of lying, the fact that he gets away with it, no, I'm sick of it. So please share that tweet thread with as many people as you can. Snap a few photos, whatever you got to do. But we got to get this word out. Canadians need to know that this man is lying through his teeth. All he wants is power. He does not want to govern, and he will harm so many people in this country because he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you. He just doesn't. And that's it. That's all I got to say.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, please roll them credits.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, there you go. I found it. It says that the City Council of Waterloo has carried a motion unanimously in support
Excellent.
of basic income. That was
That's
the big
great.
news. I am going to find out more about it because there was an article on September 11th in CBC called Waterloo Councillor Wants City to Support Call for National Basic Income Program. So that's September 11th. I will include it right here for you so that you can put it in the chat, Mr. Grizzly, for the kits so they can look at it. So that's a pre-article in the lead up to the vote that happened yesterday. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And as Kit Saucy says, also, I would like to throw potatoes at the Dingleberry Parade. And Jen says, ignore the Dingleberry Parade today, folks. Potato is going to potate. So there you go.
I have to go to work. I don't have time for this crap.
Yeah, and I got to prepare the next show. And somebody, it seems that the kids really liked our moist today. It was particularly moist, and got Kit Dan's going. His eyebrows are moist. Well, not yet, but now they are. All right, kids.
Jesus Christ, I'll see ya.